All right, guys, we're going to look at the passing from the Panthers and the Titans and all of their stats. Bryce Young with 4,260 yards passing, 38 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 61% completion percentage. That is an awesome season from him. Miles Sanders with 1,756 yards rushing, 18 touchdowns. Crazy. Also, Bryce Young with 7 touchdowns and 211 yards rushing. Only 1,000. Look at this. Look at nuts. Miles Sanders, 1,000 yards. So he had 2,700 yards total. And he had 6 receiving touchdowns. Hayden Hurst had 983 and 7 touchdowns. He was so close. And then DJ Shark, 919 yards with 6 touchdowns. And then Mingo had 563 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then Adam Thielen, 1/3 of his catches pretty much were touchdowns. 9 touchdowns, 371 yards receiving. Pretty great season. Touchdown-wise, not necessarily anything else. Brian Burns, 12.5 sacks. Frankie Luvo, 4.5 sacks. Shaq Thompson, 3.5 sacks. And then 9 interceptions from J.C. Horn. Xavier Woods, 4. Dante Jackson, 4. And then 1 for Shaq, 1 for Jamie Robinson. And then, of course, Christopher Dunn, 23 for 23 with a 60-yard field goal in there with 53 extra points, 100% all around. All right, let's take a look at the Titans and see how they did. Will Levis, 4,168 yards, 27 touchdowns, 11 picks. Both quarterbacks with 11 picks. 1,585 yards for Derrick Henry with 23 touchdowns. Will Levis almost had 10. He was 1 away from 10 touchdowns. 239 yards rushing. 235 yards rushing by Tajay Spears with 5 rushing touchdowns. Traylon Burks with 1,200 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins with 1,046 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. And Okonkwo with 790 and 8 touchdowns. Kyle Phillips with only 402 yards and a touchdown, but he still had a pretty decent season. I'll take it. Sacks, only Monte Rice, 8. McCreary was second with 3.5. Arden Key, second with 3.5. Harold Landry, second with 3.5. Interception-wise, Sean Murphy-Bunting with 5. Kevin with 3. Christian with 3, McCreary with 2, Alshier with 2, Caleb Farrelly with 2. Arden Key even had an interception. That surprises me. I wasn't very aware of that one. And then, of course, Badgley got 14 of 14, 100%. 56-yarder was his longest, and then 35 for extra points. All right, let's take a look at these in-season awards, yearly awards. Okay, it looks like MVP is going to go to Patrick Mahomes. Coach of the Year is going to go to Frank Reich. AFC. So we got Derrick Henry, Player of the Year. Offensively, Von Miller. Defensively, Offensive Rookie of the Year. It looks like it's going to go to Will Levis. And then Will Anderson Jr. Quarterback of the Year was, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Running back, Derrick Henry. Wide receiver, Keenan Allen, of all things. I like it. That's awesome. Good for him. Joe Thuney from NC State is the best offensive lineman this year. And then D-line, ain't nobody on the Titans, I can tell you that. Same thing with linebackers. But defensive back, we came up 4th with Sean Murphy-Bunting. Jalen Ramsey, of course, won that one. Michael Badgley is going to be the best kicker in the AFC. All right, let's take a look at this NFC stats. Miles Sanders, of course, he had 2,700 total yards. He better win Offensive Player of the Year. I don't know how he doesn't win MVP. It's kind of BS. Aaron Donald, Defensive Player of the Year. I actually don't think. I think it should be J.C. Horn. 9 interceptions is insane. Bryce Young winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, finally getting to that top. All right, and then Isaiah Foskey from the Saints. Best QB, Dak Prescott, Bryce Young right behind him. I'm going to go with, probably should have just been Bryce Young. Miles Sanders, of course, was running back of the year. Receiver of the year, not a single person off the Panthers, I can tell you that much. Offensive lineman, not a single person from the Panthers. Defensive lineman, not a single person from the Panthers. Linebacker, though, Brian Burns was second. Shaq Barrett was first. Probably had he not gotten that sack in the game, it would have been Brian Burns. Crap. J.C. Horn, of course, got Defensive Back of the Year, or should have gotten Defensive Player of the Year. Christopher Dunn, the rookie kicker out of NC State, won Kicker of the Year. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to end up winning it. All right, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. That was the stats and awards. Next up, playoffs.